Today is Thursday, June 18th. It is 1 after 9 a.m. This is the third month that we have been, I guess the term is still respectfully sheltering in place and meeting via Zoom in various locations. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I don't see Amish Patel. Amish, are you there? We've got board member Terry Ennis. Joan Solu is with us, board member. Nancy, there's Nancy. Hi, Nancy, good morning. Chris Costecca is with us this morning. And the staff present, Scott Collins, city manager, Jen Little, tourism manager, Heather Goodwin, deputy city clerk, and Megan, marketing and communications coordinator. Did I miss anyone? I think we're all there. All right. Let's start this morning with a moment of silence, and especially let's recognize the past rebels in San Luis Obispo County law enforcement officers that were injured last week in the line of duty. So please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. And I believe we're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, united with God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, jumping into board member announcements. As of June 15th, just to give everyone some perspective on the COVID situation in San Luis Obispo County, the county is reporting 59 active cases. 54 of those individuals are recovering at home. 5 are hospitalized, 3 in the ICU. And of the 23 new confirmed cases, again, as of June 15th, 14 were attributed to person-to-person spread. Only one in the county is attributed to travel. 5 are attributed to community spread, not related to travel. And 3 are still under investigations. So let's open it up to other board member announcements. Anyone? Okay, seeing none. Any staff announcements?
Nope.
Sure, I'd like to just give a quick update on where things are at as well. Thanks for that piece, Steve. And board members, thanks for being here today. As the chair mentioned, we're still tracking closely the caseload in San Luis Obispo. We had 20 new cases yesterday, which was the highest number I think we've had the whole time we've been tracking since March. That could be a component of just increased or enhanced testing capabilities. We're able to test far more individuals than we could when this began in March. But we're definitely tracking that closely and understand that we're seeing similar trends throughout the state and much of the country. So it is concerning, though no change of plans as of yet. As you all know, last month, the TBID did approve moving forward with the renewal of the assessment for fiscal year 2021. City Council took that up at the last council meeting on the 9th of June and approved to move forward to have the public hearing next Tuesday and adoption of the budget next Tuesday as well. The situation remains incredibly fluid, both the COVID situation as well as our budget. The impacts are still present, both the public health and the fiscal. When you look at the reports that were provided in this agenda packet, the STAR report and other TOT measures are significantly down, even with folks traveling. Unemployment is significantly high, and we're concerned about a resurgence of the existing wave and also need to be cognizant of a potential second wave this fall or winter. With all that in mind, we've made significant cuts across the organization to help maintain a balanced budget in all of our funds, not just the general fund, but also TBID, our water and sewer funds, as well as our harbor enterprise fund. As was mentioned at the last TBID meeting, I was going to form a stakeholder group to help kind of figure out how best to proceed forward. And City Council also approved me doing that. So I will be including members of TBID, hoteliers, vacation rental owners, as well as regional stakeholders in that group, and begin work as early as next week. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, we're going to open it up to public comment. There's several ways. If members of the public want to raise their hand, we would be dependent on AGP for letting us know that. Or there are several ways in which I believe they can call in. The number is there on the screen. But I suppose if they were calling in, they wouldn't have the screen, would they? 408-638-0968. 669-900-6833 or 346-248-7799. Password 135692, *9 to raise hand. So AGP, do we have any public comment that you're aware of?
There is one person in the queue, but no hands are raised.
Is that Amish Patel?
No, that is not.
Okay. He should be promoted to a panelist too.
Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no public comment.
Amish is as a panelist right now.
Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning, Amish. I'll assume he can hear us. Moving on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of the April, May, and May special meeting minutes, and then the March and April TOT reports. Do we have a motion to approve as submitted?
I motion to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Nancy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Terry?
That was me.
Oh, Joan, thank you. Okay, approve as submitted.
Are we going to also include the TOT, A1 through A4? I'm sorry.
I think it was everything, yes, on the.
On consent?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, did you want to speak about the TOT report at all?
A little bit. You want to talk about it for a minute?
Please.
I mean, it's, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we all know it's just a difficult situation. I did want to mention, if you look at the report that comes out, you'll see a little bit of numbers trickling in May. Just ignore that for now. So as they come into City Hall, they just automatically post them. That is not a factual number. They just keep updating that. Some people report early if maybe they're just not filling rooms, any later, and they just decide to submit early. So that's what that odd little 37,000 is sitting on there. And you'll see we put in the STAR report for, it's just a weekly report right now. It's the first week of June. So we are tracking for first week of June at 47% on STAR. And I would say STAR runs about 3% off of our actual numbers. So we're close to it, but not quite. But that's down 20% over last year. And then we just got this morning, the second week of June STAR report, and it's showing us at 54% over 79% occupancy last year for the second week of June. And the monthly report should be coming out for May, should be coming out today. We just haven't received it yet from SLOCAL, and I'll forward that to all of you so you have it when it comes in.
Hey, Jen, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did we come to a consensus on reporting our occupancy as to whether when hotels were closed, if you would prefer, or I'm not sure, the SLOCAL, or do we report 0% occupancy for those days, or do you leave that blank and say you only had 15 days? Do you just list the 15 days and how much your occupancy was then? What was the decision on that?
I think
So
it's
if you were closed, if you were open 15 days and you were sold out every one of those 15 days, would you have been 100% occupancy that month or 50% occupancy?
I think it's an individual decision each business owner needs to make. My recommendation would be to report the shortened days so that your occupancy is factual, because if you go to sell your hotel and you're only open 15 days, but you report 30 days, it's going to change your occupancy. It's not going to be correct to factual numbers. But I think you need to each make your own decision as a business owner on how you want to report that.
I guess the concern with that would be is we could look like we have inflated occupancy when we compare ourselves to maybe other communities. I think these few months we're just not going to have really clear data would be my best guess on this. It's going to be hard to know what individual hotels did. So if the corporate numbers make sense or not, it'd be hard to determine.
Maybe the other hotel owners could give you thoughts on what they would recommend.
Well, piggybacking on that question, if the county restricted the occupancy to 50%, does that reduce our hotel stock by 50% for that reporting period?
That's exactly the question. We're not quite sure.
Right. Amish, you have any thoughts on that?
I think it would just be standard reporting for the 30, 31 days that we had for the month, whatever occupancy we had. I don't think it should be changed given any order or if you're closed.
I know that hotels do reduce down their number of rooms if they're closed for remodels. They've done that in the past before. So that would be the only thing that I have to compare it to, this unusual circumstance.
Yeah, it would just be rooms been put out of order for half of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go to sell your hotel, it's based on revenue across the entire year and then occupancy and ADR. But when you have an anomaly like this, it's usually indicated in the notes section. So however you wish to do it, as long as you understand that when, in the future, I hope none of you are getting out of town, but in the future, when you go to sell your hotel, it's advisable to make note that, March and April it was COVID, or if you were closed June and July of the year for construction, you note that so the future purchaser sees where the scale goes.
And you might want to ask your accounting, whoever does your accounting, their recommendation on it as well.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Chris. Without saying, I think it's going to be challenging to sell any hotels for the next year or so. Jen, are you seeing the same trends for different areas in the county?
We are. Yeah, we are. I mean, the beach communities are recovering quicker, obviously, because we have the go-to place, right? They want to be at the beach. So that's just natural progression of summer, people wanting to be here. So I'll give you an idea. I'm looking at the STAR report. Well, you have the one in your packet for the first week of, but that was a holiday. So I don't think we should really count that one. But looking at it's the 7th of June through the 13th. Atascadero was at 40%. They were at 80% last year. Cambria, so at the coast, they were at 57. Last year, they were at 85. Morro Bay is at 54. Last year, we were at 79. Paso is at 40. Last year, they were at 82. Pismo is at 63. Last year, they were at 80. City of San Luis is at 48. Last year, they were at 76. And San Simeon is at 47. Last year, they were at 76.
This might be more of a question for Scott, but are the different areas in the county, is the open business is what's allowed? Is it about the same? For instance, I saw in Pismo, they're advertising a youth baseball tournament on the 4th of July. I don't know how the heck they can do that, but they're advertising it. So are we all kind of in the same boat as to what we can and can't do in the county?
Yes, the only thing you can do is go stricter than what the county has allowed. You can't go more liberal than, though I imagine just like some business owners, some are cutting corners. It may be applied to some cities as well. So at this point, we have not been given approval for youth or athletic sports. So that could be something that's more informal that's being advertised at this time.
Understood. Thank you. Joan?
I follow a few of our county destinations on Instagram, and the one directly to the north of us posts 2 to 3 times a day, inviting people to come. The beaches are open. So that has an impact on Morro Bay visitation, obviously, because when you're advertising out to 50 or 60,000 people, you don't, in a small town like the one directly north of ours, they just don't have enough restaurants and stuff to handle all that. So, we get flooded with it. So while we're not advertising, I think we are still seeing some impact off of what they're doing. And I just want to comment that in regards to the STAR report that's attached to our agenda, I noticed in rate, actually, we may have less rooms on the market and whatnot, but Morro Bay has gained slightly in revenue share against Pismo and Cambria, slightly year over year. I don't think that will hold, but if you look, we're a couple of dollars up, like year to year. Last year in 2019, there was about roughly a $43 to $45 disparity between our rates and the rates in Pismo. And this year, it looks like it's about $40. Same for Cambria. So that's interesting to see. I'm hoping that rates will bounce back. I have looked online a couple of times to see how the hotels were doing, and rates were in the bottom of the bottom, unfortunately. But that was for essential travel. And now as the state starts to open back up and travel opened up last Friday, I think the rates will probably naturally start to move a little carefully, very gingerly back up to the stabilization, we hope, as long as there's not a second wave.
And Joan, while people are unemployed or they're reduced incomes, I think we'll see a stronger pull over Pismo because the Pismo rates are so high. So I think we'll have a benefit over them. They have a totally different product than us. So They hang out over the beach, so they're always going to have higher rates than us. I mean, you have direct sand access from a lot of the hotels on the beach. So it's a different animal, but it's good to have somebody to compare to. So
For sure. Any other questions, comments on the TOT report? Okay, moving on. I believe B, business items. So first would be Morro Bay Tourism Rollout Plan. Scott?
Yes, thank you. I'll turn it over to Jen in 1 second, and I would just want to say thank you to her and Megan, as well as Visit SlowCal for being so thoughtful and putting together a plan that considers the various phases. As you'll note in the report, there's no delineation of date of when things will transpire, and that just reflects the fluid nature that we're in right now, our environment that we're in right now. But I think taking a conservative and thoughtful approach is the right way to go. Knowing that we still are in the first wave of COVID, we have not extinguished that wave and expecting a second wave. So we have to be methodical about how we move forward. But again, I just want to say thank you to Jen for pulling this together. So I'll turn it over to her for the presentation.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see let me see. Hey, there it is. Okay. You guys see that? Staff report? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, just kind of go through and talk about it a little bit. This is a broad thought on kind of the different aspects. I know we went through different specific components like the camping and things like that, which those aspects are still moving forward. So this is more broad thought on how do we roll back out. At this point, we've implemented a few things, but very, very few. We changed the header on the Morro Bay website, and we also changed the header on the Facebook page, but we haven't really talked about it yet. So hopefully with you guys, we can get a little more direction on what you're ready to have us do. So one thing I wanted to mention is I think it's really insightful for us as a community that before all this happened, our new branding campaign that was put into place, the outdoor recreation and the open space, it fits so perfectly into where we are now. So, we're very lucky from that aspect that it's just a natural kind of keeps moving us forward with that thought pattern. So I'm really, really happy with that. Saves us a lot of money because we've invested money last year in the videos and things like that. So I think this will really help us go forward quicker. So to talk about just kind of an overview, what I've done is I've put together some things that VSLOC, Visit SoCal, has put together. They've put out some parameters on what they're going after, and they also put together the Google co-op that I had mentioned before. So we have that to present to you as well. And they have a couple personas that they have put together. So let me go through this. So again, like Scott said, I didn't put dates in here because, there's just no way to know what that's going to be. So what I did was I titled them part 1, 2, and 3 instead of, I tried to get them away from the segments of rolling out as far as county health so that we're not tied straight to their, phase 1, phase 2, and so that we can kind of see where we need to put these at. So the first one, when the restrictions are lifted, we'll kind of go out with more of a casual, informal, not paid media. So really right now during summertime, and it's very typical of what we do for summer, we shouldn't need to spend really any money. We need to get out there on social and, get that moved back up like Joan had mentioned. So that's a big thing. And how we do that, I'm going to show you some things that we're going to do, going with buzzwords like sustainable and open space. And like I said, the things that we already have done, I think are a natural fit for us. These travel motivators were put together by SoCal. And so I really want to kind of go with where they're heading. And I think they fit really well into our thought pattern as a community and for our brand that we've already put together. So the harmony and balance, the idea of that people are just missing out. They're missing that joy of being out and doing something would be the first group. And they want to recharge, their life, recharge their trip, get out in nature. So that's Morro Bay, right? It fits perfectly with what we're thinking. Gives them time to regain control of their life, helps them escape the everyday stress and pressures and gets them to relax, restores their sense of harmony and balance, allows them to feel special or spoiled, avoids the feeling of organization and surprises, which is kind of unfortunately what COVID's been a lot of. So I think that first persona fits really nicely into us, into the photos that we have from Dana Joy. And then the second one is perspective and immersion, which I really like this one too. And it's more the idea of wanting to get into the local lifestyle. And again, it's exactly what we've talked about over the last 2 years. So I'm really thrilled with, we're just really nicely meshed with where they're going. And so it's the idea that travelers want to get, enriched experiences, like get out on the bay, get the oysters. We now have the 2 oyster farmers that are selling off the dock. So those type of things I think will be really nicely married into the idea of immersion. And it allows them to really, meet the local people. That's, to me, Morro Bay, right? All of our restaurants are pretty much owner-operator. Same with hotels. You get to really meet and see the people that are there instead of, the big box idea. So those are kind of the 2 personas. Out of both of those, Meg and I went through all of the photos, and we have so many photos to shoot, to choose from that Dana took over the last 2 years. I think we're really solid on that. And we haven't used all of them. So we'll use those for a lot of social media. And then part 2, so I'm just going to go over the overview, and then I'm going to dive into part 1 after I go through these 3 separate sections. So part 2 will be now when travel is fully open and people are comfortable to travel. So it's a different mindset of, people are now used to the new normal. And that's people meaning tourists and residents, because if we don't have the buy-in from residents, it's going to make it difficult for tourists when they're here. So we need to have that comfort level from everybody that Morro Bay is safe. People are ready to, come experience. And I'm hoping that'll be early fall and try to get people to look at fall stays that, Morro Bay is a safe place to come. Residents feel like we're ready to have solid tourism back, for the the fall season. And we've got some really good forecasting that we've been using to look at these things, and we'll just keep watching and monitoring them. But Adara has, and they actually sent it last night. I'll send it out to all of you later on today. But they have the futures look to book, and it shows, how people are actually, when they're looking to book and if they're booking. And so that, to me, it's factual numbers. It's not, a lot of the companies out there are doing, research and development of what they think it might be. But Adara, they are the #1 hotel booker search engine. And so they have huge bandwidth to show us what people are actually booking 20 weeks out. So that, to me, will help us, watch, where people are going. And if you want to see it, I can get in my email and pull it up for you guys. Just let me know. And then the arrivalists, what their data is showing, we get that through SoCal, and that comes out on the 27th of every month. So I'm looking forward to see how that looks compared to last month. The problem with the arrivalist data is that it shows a good broad thought for the county, but it doesn't break us down how we compete with our neighboring communities, because they've combined some groups. They combined Avila Beach with Montana Del Oro, and so that's a little difficult to figure out. So it's hard to see how we're one-on-one competing with the group, but it shows how people are traveling into the county. So that's good. That's good research for us. And then TripAdvisor sends data trends, also good, but that's, like I mentioned before, that's trends, where Adara is actual look to book. So it's a different mindset. It's kind of nice to see what people are thinking about and what they're actually doing, so we can kind of marry the two. And Megan will keep getting those, and she can forward those to you. During that time, I think it's really important to keep our social media posts organic and not spend too much money on those, and really hold our funds until we see what the co-ops are going to look like. We did get the one from Google, which I'll let Megan go through at the end of this, and it's really strong. So that'll be our first one. And then I was looking at Visit California. They've got a couple co-ops they've posted this week, which I think are really interesting. And one of them is an email immersion, which might be really nice because it's going directly after people that want to travel to California versus, a broad thought of placing an ad on their website or on their social media. Then, you want to capture people that actually want to be in California and really hone in our dollars right now. So we'll look at those. Haven't had a chance to look at those yet, but we will take a look at those and see how they're looking. And then part 3 is going to be when we actually dive into full spending money on promoting our videos and social media. And I don't know when that'll be. I left it broad open because I have no idea what it's going to be like and how this is going to roll out. But so that part of it still needs to be developed out. So this is, have you guys seen this? This comes out from SoCal. This is a really interesting graph, and it shows, this is now, this is from May 6th. So it's almost a month old, but you can see how it's trending. And what's really interesting on this bar graph, so this is done by Tourism Economics, and they gave us 3 different thought patterns on where we might be going. But again, this is all trend data, not factual data. So looking at, upside, baseline, and then the bottom one is downturn, what we're really right now looking at as far as where we're going is on the upside. So if you read the first section, it says virus-related inhibitions to travel. Majority of California travel restrictions eased in June. So that's really where we're trending right now. So that's the blue line. So it shows that we're trending up, which is nice to see, but it doesn't mean it's going to stay there. There's a possibility if we get a second surge of COVID, it could go down to a baseline or even below that. But I think it's really nice to see that we're trending on the high side right now versus middle or low. You guys have any thoughts on that? No? Y'all good? It's a quiet group. So here's kind of some of the stuff we're working on for rolling out the gentle social media aspect. This is the new photo that we switched on the header for the website. The one up down below was the old one, lots of people on the beach. The sky is pretty moody. The top one, the sky is still moody, but that's Morro Bay. I like that it's got all the open space. See these little groups of people, they're all nicely spaced out. It looks like it was shot for COVID, doesn't it? I think it's really good. So this is what we have on the header now for morrobay.org. Unfortunately, I guess we were unaware that Visit California was going to put out an email or a social media post saying that California is now reopened, and it had a link to every county that was reopened. And Scott and I talked, we're like, holy smokes, we didn't know that was going to happen. And they listed Morro Bay, that was last Friday, as open. And it sent, the link that they sent to was stay at home page. So unfortunately, we didn't know they were doing that. They just did it. It was kind of a surprise. That was really too bad. But I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was kind of a disappointment. I was sorry to see that happen so quickly without them kind of reaching out. I don't know if they reached out on a county level and just put everybody in there, because they had every city in our county in there. Some of the other things, and maybe, I don't know, Megan, if you want to talk about the upgrades to SimpleView a little bit, but we were approached by SimpleView to have one less click through to go to hotel stays. So we went ahead and did that. So that'll help visitors. Megan, do you want to tell them about that at all? No?
Sure. Just, it's again, one less click. So it will increase the referral rate, hopefully, is the goal, obviously, from our website. And they've done it on a couple other sites as well. So you don't have to go to the Book Direct page and then to the website. It takes people who are interested in your property directly to your reservation system, which is always good to have less clicks.
Yeah, so I think it's good. So that's been put into place already. And then this is kind of old now. So this was just the initial email that went out, and we'll do some more stuff like that. We did a toolkit, and Megan and I just walked the posters around to every business in town, and everybody's like, yes, I'll take one, I'll take one. So we got posters up all around town, just very broad. This was before hotels had the announcement, so it's not hotel featured. This is about restaurant and just general travel, not about hotel specific. But we got these on all of the properties pretty much throughout town. And then this header was created for everybody's Facebook page. I haven't been out there to look to see if they're using it or not. And, you know, it's their decision. It's not specific to their business, so I don't know if they will, but we wanted to provide it. There was a similar kit that was provided by SlowCal, but we wanted to be specific to Morro Bay, so we just made our own concept to be specific for our visitors. We also did some hashtags for everybody to use, restaurants, retails. This has not been sent out yet. So this is one of the things we wanted to talk with you guys about and see if we're on board and ready. You know, when I was out on Friday handing out the posters, a lot of the restaurants were like, I'm not ready. I mean, they were like, it happened so suddenly, which was kind of interesting because we've been closed for months. And they weren't ready. And so they were a little panicked about the idea of putting stuff out there. And so Scott and I talked, like, let's just hold on it through the weekend, talk with TBID, and then roll it out afterwards. So we kind of used this last weekend as kind of a soft relaunch for, visitors to get into restaurants and retail. And the town was absolutely packed. Friday morning, like at 9 a.m., it was totally packed. It was just nuts. So these hashtags we'd like to get out to everybody to start putting onto their photos. And the original two that we did last year, I would still recommend to keep those. The Morro Vacation and the Outdoor Goals are both getting good traction online. That's a link to the one hashtag. And then we added a couple more that are specific more about, not COVID specifically, but about what people might be looking for post-COVID. So outdoor dining, boutique, get that word boutique or open space in there. California Less Traveled is a tagline that Visit California is using. So I think that's really important to get out there. So what do you guys think about, any thoughts on those at all? Or Chris gives me a thumbs up.
Input board. Jen, why don't you finish the presentation, then we'll go through the board members and get some input from everyone.
No problem. Okay, so here's the Facebook page, and we Scott and I talked about doing a 3-phase approach. So we removed the Explore at Home. We went to the temporary header bay, Morro Bay is open. And then we just put a generic image up. So we're just kind of soft pedaling it. I'd like to get back to the video slideshow at the top, which, all of our videos are very much about open space. They have like 1 or 2 people in them. I mean, they're perfect for, what we're talking about, wanting to incite people into doing and being here for. So this is the kind of a snippet of how the videos would look back up there. And then the social media posts, these would be very much not book your stay today. It's not about that right now. Right now, it's about get outside, breathe the air, enjoy the Morro Bay open space, and give that reassuring position that Morro Bay is safe, it's beautiful, it's an easy getaway, and it's not crowded. And so the images that we would use would be similar to these, showing very little people in them, more about just wide open spaces, big sky, fresh air type of idea. And I would also recommend to keep the live that I've been doing. I reduced down how many lives I was doing because I started to get a little panicked, when we were still closed, that people were like, oh, I'm going, so I'm reading all these comments. I'm getting, hundreds of comments, and people are like, it looks beautiful, I'm going to go. So I backed off of it a little bit. I was going out originally and doing them every day, and then I reduced it down, and I haven't been going when I'm going into a week, and like Thursday, Fridays, I'm not doing them because I was worried about, people showing up. But if you guys like the idea, we can go back and start them again. You can see the numbers on here. I mean, our engagement is really, really strong. And I looked at those compared to Monterey, Santa Barbara, and what they were doing, which was not live feeds, and their engagement is like half of what ours is. So we're getting really good engagement with the live feeds. People are loving them. I think it gives them a sense of what's real. It's not that idea of a perfect ad, it's what's really happening now. And so it's attainable. They know that it's real, and we're really getting good response on it. So I think that's been a really nice aspect of what we're doing. And then the outdoor goal videos. So there's actually 12 total. Here's 9 of them I put up for you guys. All of them are very much wide open spaces. I would run them all, going into probably August, so that we can start capturing that, early fall visitor, and start spending a little bit of money against those in placement on social media and start running them. They're really beautiful. They're very limited copy right now. They say outdoor goals for the hashtag on them. We could change that if we want to be a little more specific about outdoor space, but I think outdoor goals is pretty strong. I'm curious how you feel about that now post COVID. So that's the videos. And then Megan has put together kind of just a whole landslot of press and blogs that we want to start rolling out on a regular basis. And they're very much about what people are looking for post-COVID. Her and I spent a lot of time kind of thinking through the ideas, and I'm really liking them. And then whatever she does on the press release will be similar to what goes into the blog. So the idea of open space, boutique lodging, outdoor access. So like the waterfront hotels that you can just get, right in the water behind the hotel. That unique lodging mix, I think, is really strong. One thing that we've never really pushed is the multiple access points on the beach, and the idea that people are not going to want to be in groups. They're all used to going out to the rock and parking in that lot. And, the idea of showing an overhead view of here's all of our access points all up and down Morro Bay to get into the ocean or get to the beach, I think would be a really strong idea of not, getting in that tight knit box of the Embarcadero parking lot. Coast Less Travel, playing off of the Visit California campaign, California Less Travel. The outdoor goals is the videos that we already did. Waterfront camping is coming along well, and it sounds like, I don't know, maybe Scott can speak to that, but it sounds like it's going to be a go. It might not be camping at the Rock, but it would be waterfront. So we'll put together some thoughts on that. And I think that's still a bucket list item that's never been done before that we can really get good PR on. We can get it out to Visit California and get it to SoCal and get them to really push out that once in a lifetime opportunity that's never been done before. One of the things that I think would be really good to do for press is all the upgrades that have been done while we've been closed. A lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants, they've all been doing, upgrades while they've had this downtime. Then at Morabay, that's what they decided to do with their time, and it's worked really well. When they went to 50%, they've just been taking those rooms up and down and redoing all their rooms. And then the dining experience, obviously we need to update that as well. These are just samples of, I'm not going to read through, these are just some couple samples that Megan did of press releases. And then here's all the blogs. I'm not going to read through all these, but you get the idea. I mean, we're just trying to really get into, Morro Bay and kind of get out and be in the open area. One of the things I think is a really fun idea is the idea of what did you miss during COVID? Recreate that event that you missed. So if you were really looking for the Kite Festival, and did come, maybe it's going to do a blog on here's how to do your own kite weekend while you're here. Go get your kite, take a packed lunch out to the beach and spend the day. Kind of that idea, more of that idea of recreate what you missed, I think will be a really fun aspect from a blog that people will enjoy. And then kind of a revamp on our e-blasts, plan your visit to Morro Bay now. So this is just kind of a general look of how we're going to switch our e-blasts a little bit and welcome people back. And Jen and Marley, get to use Jen and Marley. I love that photo of them. There's nobody else on the Harbor Walk. I think it's really strong. And then here's the Visit SoCal, the co-op. I'm just going to briefly talk about this because Megan has a staff report on it. But so last year, I don't know if you remember, they did part one of this Google co-op, and what it was it was really focused on all businesses in the community and getting all businesses listed onto Google. So that was restaurants and retail plus hotels. And we didn't, we participated, but at a lower level. We didn't participate to pay for all of the restaurant retailers to do it. This is a different idea. This is really going into the community and seeing what is the community missing and getting it on Google Maps. And I think one of the strongest things we can do is get them out on the water. If we can get them on a paddleboard going down the bay or something that's totally Morro Bay, that to me is the key. We have a lot of street views already, but I think that would be a really fun idea. This, I gave them a verbal commitment that we want to do this because I didn't want to miss out. It was verbally, I had to tell them on the 12th of June, but we haven't signed a contract. We haven't seen exactly how this looks yet. And we haven't told them that we're hoping to do the water aspect of it. I was kind of holding that in our pocket so that they don't take it out to all the other waterfront communities, because I'm just that way. I want it for Morro Bay. So we'll see if we can do that and see how Google feels about getting on the water. I don't know if that's even an option or not, but that might be kind of fun. That it? I think that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jen. Why don't we go through board members and provide some input?
Sure.
Chris, you want to start? Do you have any thoughts?
Got it. I liked all of it, Jen. I think it's fantastic. I like every angle that you guys are playing. I assume that when we do start rolling out advertising, it's going to be focused on that 3-mile drive range would be my guess for the foreseeable future. We're probably not spending any dollars towards foreign travel. We're probably not spending any dollars, and out-of-state travel would be my guess. It'd be very designed for that 3 to 4 hour drive, Bay Area to Los Angeles and the Valley would be my guess on that. As for the Google Street View program also, if they'd like to use one of our little boats to go out there. They don't have to show the boat, but that's a good way to get up and down the bay to view everything from there. If they don't want to stand with that expensive equipment on a paddleboard, be a little scary. But no, like it all. Well done.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm for rolling it out sooner as opposed to later. It's still too soon now, but I am a little concerned with travel I think when everybody goes back to work. I'm not sure if we're going to have the same travel rush, and we're not going to have the European traveler, and we're not going to have the out-of-state traveler. If we're prepared to advertise to bring influx of tourists in August and COVID is low, all means, if we have contracts that we can cancel, based upon a resurge of COVID, that'd be what I do. I would forge forward with out clauses if if it looks like the environment is changing. That's all I've got.
Super, thank you. Just some perspective, and you all probably know this, but the federal stimulus and the Paycheck Protection Program, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal, 85% of small hotel operators, and small is defined by 500 employees or less, were able to obtain those funds. It's an 8-week program. So that obviously provided some reprise for the industry. Those funds at 8 weeks are going to expire here at the end of June, for some folks end of July. So just taking the economics into sustainability of the hotels into account, I think it's important that they generate as much income as they can, here for the summer season responsibly. So let's go through and get some other comments. Terry, do you have some comments on that? Just unmute yourself if you could. There you go.
I agree. I really like the presentation. It's great. I would like to see, when people come into town, being kind of bombarded with the morrowbay.org website, so they have something to go to without a visitor center, and what that means, like not just the morrowbay.org, but for more information, go to morrowbay.org, or visitors visit morrowbay.org, something to push them to the hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants, so they have more information. When I was in real estate and doing marketing, one of the biggest lessons I learned on websites is, unless you direct people there, it's a billboard in the middle of nowhere. So I think that would be a nice push. The only thing otherwise it's like beautiful. One comment on the PPP loan is, I believe that's been extended now to 20 weeks. So that will help prolong funds. Like some businesses have already used that money in the 8 weeks, but they can use it in 20 weeks now. So that would be my only other comment. Otherwise, great job.
Great, thank you, Terry. Nancy, what are your thoughts? Nice dog, by the way.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I have some barking. I have somebody washing my windows, and so my dogs are going crazy. So, I'll mute if I have to. Jen, thank you. Heather, SlowCal, really great job. Fantastic positioning. Really well aligned to each one of the phases. I love how you've really incorporated making sure that the residents feel safe for this, and so that they can be more welcoming, especially as we move into phase 2 and hopefully phase 3. So also on the Google Co-op program, Google hasn't updated a lot of their photographs of Morro Bay since 2012. So you may want to ask them to, if you're going to run this, you might want to get them out here to update some of the photographs. But everything else, fantastic. I'm totally on board. Love it.
Great, thank you, Nancy. Amish, what are your thoughts?
I think that this is a very well put together multi-phase approach. The two biggest questions I get at the hotel when people are reserving is, number one, are you open? And number two, what are your safety measures? And while this time it is too early to let the public know that, hey, we are open, I think a kind of workaround would be to show them how we are doing as a city on safety measures. And if it's possible to kind of highlight that. I know the chamber sent out an email yesterday or the day before wanting to get to know the local businesses and what safety precautions they put up. So I think if there's some way to incorporate that into all this, I know there was a section there on the phase 1 for the Facebook ads that had a few highlights of what we had, such as like the hand washing stations and 6 feet. But if we're able to incorporate some visual aids into there as well, I think it'd make a big difference, especially during this time when people are really wondering where should we travel, and where we're traveling, what is it going to be safe for us?
Yeah, I like that.
I totally agree on this. And what we're seeing at our hotels, and this is statewide, is there's really two different types of travelers. One is very cognizant of sterilization, cleanliness, social distancing, and then you have the other folks that are trying to roll spring break into their summer vacation. They're stir crazy and they just want to get out of the house. So I think if we advertise towards cleanliness and responsible travel, obviously it's good for the community, and it will probably help us generate a higher caliber of guests coming to the city, which is good for everyone. So I would agree with those comments. Joan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know, am I on mute? No, okay, sorry. So I think that it's a good plan. I love the fact that we're leveraging what Visit SlowCal is doing. I think it's a wise use of our very limited dollars to be able to stretch them by, bouncing off of whatever they're doing. I like the idea where, going back, Jennifer mentioned that we have one less click for the look to book on our website. And I'm wondering, Jennifer can probably answer this at the end, whether that included vacation rentals too, or whether that was just the hotels for the, Megan's shaking her head yes, so it's all lodging then? Is that what I'm getting? Okay, good. And then I think that it's great that we're showing more open spaces, because that's really why people come here, is to discover open spaces. They can be very close to great restaurants, but still get out in the open. And that's really, really an important factor. I like the idea that the board members touched on about safety measures, Amish. I'd like to see maybe a list of what the city is doing in terms of safety measures. And in other words, I don't know, are we still going to maintain hand washing stations on every other block? Maybe we should, because maybe that would make the public and our local residents feel very, very good about being here. If you're picking up takeout and you're going to the park, odds are that between your car and the park to eat, you've touched about 15 or 20 different surfaces. So it would be great, at least in or near to Anchor Memorial Park and some of the other, maybe along the boardwalk, to have one or two hand washing stations. And maybe the city can touch on that a little bit. I know that I have to thank Linda Merrill. You probably have all seen the emails going back and forth about public restroom cleanliness. It's a fact of life. We're all going to use the restroom at least once during the day. So I think that public restroom cleanliness is, I admire her for staying on top of such a sore subject for so many people. And I have to give it to her. I believe that she is, through her diligence, making daylighting the issues that we have with our public restrooms. And maybe Scott or someone can give us continue to give us updates on the Coleman Park restroom for it to come back open. And as we promote our open spaces and this wonderful package that we've put together, I am curious when we get an update on what the camping, what possible camping will look like, the once in a lifetime camping that we've talked about. We also, when we talked about that, we talked about one-waying the Embarcadero for pedestrian foot traffic. Sean Green sent us an email that was a terrific email regarding public comment on our report that we have here on leveraging SlowCal, but also on, once we impact the visitor and bring the visitor here, how we can safely keep them visiting, but yet apart from each other. And one way to do that would be to close one-way directional traffic on the Embarcadero and expand the walking surface. I know that we tried it during COVID. It was pointed. Most people want to walk view the rock from the ocean side, the west side of the street, and we had that backwards. We were having our back towards the rock. The one-way traffic was going what would be south. You had your back towards the rock as you were on the ocean side or the west side of the street. That, in my mind, would have to be reversed. And then we would have to direct people where they could park and how to manage it. But I would we've talked for 22 years, almost 23 years now I've lived here, and we've talked about expanding the pedestrian pathway and one-waying the Embarcadero. There's been several plans that lay it out, and this would be a great time to just temporarily do it and see how it goes. So and then the last thing I want to touch on is I think that this plan opening up in the phases is really, really good because we don't know what's going to happen with school. A lot of the school districts are not doing summer school. And so I think people are going to come here because they need things to do with their kids. There's no camps available right now. I mean, the outdoor school, you may have read it in the newspaper, the outdoor school is closing permanently and at Rancho El Chorro. And a lot of outdoor schools and camps are not going to make it through this pandemic. And people are going to naturally come to these open spaces like the beaches and the mountains. And I think that in the fall, if schools in California return to a online curriculum or a partial online and partial in the classroom every other week, I think Morro Bay could see very strong fall visitation from that because people will be able to slap the computer shut or the Chromebook that's issued to the child and take it to the beach to study. So I think that we could see some heavy fall visitation too. So I love the phased approach. Thank you, Jennifer, for all you've done here. Haven't been able to say that to you this month, but thank you very much for all you've done here. This is a good plan to continue our momentum forward in the absence of a full staffing mechanism. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Joan. So that's the board input. We still need some recommendations on the Google 2.0 program. Jen, if I'm not mistaken, the cost for that was $12,500.
So I'm going to let Megan go through that staff report separately. So that I think we need a recommendation on is just approval to keep moving forward on the plan as shown. And I was going to mention the wash stations. I don't know if you remember, but those are actually paid for by TBID. So it's pretty minimal money, but we put those in before we closed for TBID when it first was, COVID. We put them out just to ease people's mind that Morro Bay was safe, and we still have them out there. So, I mean, if you want to add some, we can. It's not a problem, and we can definitely get some, position on that, Amish, as far as showing kind of how we're safe and the wash stations and things like that. That's easily added.
Would it be cheaper just to add hand sanitization, hand gel stations? I know statistically it kills more germs and it probably takes up less space.
I can look into that. Before we couldn't get them. So that's why the wash stations, they were like, everybody was like scrambling to get sanitizer. So that's why we're like, let's get the wash stations out. So I can take a look at that. Not a problem.
A lot easier to get now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I walk on the boardwalk. I should mention that a couple of times it's not city maintenance at all. So I want to clarify that this has nothing to do with city maintenance. The stations are a third-party company, but the box for the hand towels was so stuffed full that it didn't close right, and it opened up and they were blowing down the Embarcadero, and we were running after them. It was good exercise trying to get them picked up, and the maintenance guy came by and he jumped out of his truck and was helping. So yeah, I don't know how that could be prevented in our windy situation, but yeah, if it were just sanitizer, Stephen, that's a great idea.
And I'll tell them to fill those so full, okay?
Jen, something to think of, and that Steve touched on before. Steve had said that we have maybe different clientele coming into town. Being the utopian that I am, I see that as new people coming that can become regular Morro Bay visitors that we've all experienced for a long time. So going back to the hand washing stations and bathrooms, maybe we could co-op with the city, us having the idea of making the tourist experience better, making when they come here more enjoyable by having the bathrooms open, by having the bathrooms clean. We would have a better chance to retain those as tourists, and the city can help maintain the cleanliness of the city, which is for all our health and the locals. So maybe together we could, I've thought of this for a while, outsourcing our bathroom maintenance, open them all up. And the city doesn't have the staff for it. Maybe we outsource them some co-op to just go up and down the Embarcadero, cleaning those bathrooms and maybe the hand station. So when people do come here, their experience is better, because I do have a lot of people are walking by asking about bathrooms.
Scott, I'll let Scott talk about that.
Yeah, the city is trying to get more staffing through temporary positions. We did have to make cuts, as you all know. I think in total about 8 positions were eliminated, and then we're also holding vacant positions because we're expecting $3 to $4 million gap next year. So that does put a cramp in our style to be able to enhance services. That's just the world we live in right now. When people need it most is when they have it the least. So we're trying to be as creative as we can with our shortage to keep up to standards. But we have reopened the restrooms. I think that'll help, because the porta potties were just becoming very, very hard to keep up with through a contract. We cannot at this time outsource work that is maintained by city staff per our MOUs with the bargaining groups. But again, we're trying to see what we can do to enhance through part-time staffing. The flip side of that argument, though, is that people are earning more by staying on unemployment. So it is hard to hire people for part-time positions at this time. But we're trying to do our best. Definitely open to sanitation stations. The Coleman restroom can never reopen. It is a derelict building that is unsafe. And so we're in the process of getting state funding to completely redo that whole area, including a new restroom that's ADA accessible. But the funding process was put on hold via state parks going into COVID mode. So I don't have a timeline as to when that will resume, but we are guaranteed funding as much as you can from the state through Prop 68 to do that. It's just unclear when we would resume the design work for that piece. The Embarcadero closure, while listening on this very, very important conversation, I'm also writing the staff report for City Council for next week about options for closing Embarcadero or portions thereof. Obviously, some concerns from business owners about lost parking, concerns about just reopening and now you're throwing another curveball at a city. What are you doing? Deliveries come to the city later in the day. We have no control over that. We are at the end of the road for a lot of delivery trucks. So that does pose problems for a closure that you would have all day long. So we're trying to factor in those concerns of our business owners down there who are struggling, and seeing if we can make it work to allow for greater than 5-foot passage between groups along the waterside boardwalk, if you will. So we're going to put that in front of council next Tuesday. I think, and also working with the chamber on kind of a localized campaign around business safety and trying to positively call out those who are doing a good job. We definitely know there's some doing a much better job than others in terms of meeting the guidelines established by the state and county.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
I have a question for Scott.
Nancy has a question. Go ahead, Nancy.
So Scott, can you tell me a little bit more about and I think this was during your tenure, of how the bathrooms got rebuilt at Del Mar Park? Because my understanding was when they did a beautiful job rebuilding that building, and it was derelict as well. And they brought in, I believe, the Friends of Del Mar Park, who did all of the demo and significantly saved a bunch of money in rebuilding that structure by utilizing a volunteer organization. Is that true, and could that be replicated?
Yes, it could be replicated, and we were trying to do something similar to that for our bocce court and greenhouse project. We were going to do just to the north of City Hall, but that project was going to move forward in March of 2020, and we know what happened. So definitely a model to use volunteer labor where we can. The Del Mar restroom, we fully had the intention that the volunteer group would do the complete work. When they did the demo, they realized the whole thing had to be completely redone. And then city staff had to complete the project from that point forward. We do appreciate the work. I think it was the Harbor Rock Harbor Church, who was the volunteer group. We really appreciated their efforts. We just didn't know, as we were kind of pulling the pieces apart, how bad it was. And at that point, we made the decision to do the work in-house as opposed to outsourcing that to a professional group. But in regards to the Coleman Beach, we will have funding to do it. So it's just a matter of when that will be released to the city. In the meantime, we'll probably just have to rely on some porta potties in that area. But again, we're trying to do our best to enhance our services. We did improve our services over last year in terms of number of services done throughout the day. It used to be 2, and now it's up to 4. And I think we're maybe talking about 5 potentially now, which certainly helps keep up with the demand. Same goes for the trash situation.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
One point, I believe the CDC recommendation for public restrooms is sterilization twice a day. So if that's not happening, it should probably be posted just for liability purposes.
Okay. I believe we are talking about 4 or 5 times a day here, but I'll double check. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, if the Embarcadero is closed, wouldn't that allow with the permit, the restaurants and the retail shops to expand out onto the street to some extent?
Yes, yes and no. So the issue with streets is that the Coastal Commission has given approval via an emergency permit to allow outdoor dining in public right-of-way areas, excluding the harbor walk itself. But the issue then is, okay, how do you make that comply with ADA and things like that? Our streets, especially Embarcadero, bows like pretty significantly. And so if you put tables out like over here, it's going to be on this curb and it could pose a threat to safety. So we're trying to figure out how we can work around that. So in the meantime, if we do a closure of several blocks, the dead end areas, if you will, the dead end right at the waterfront, those are more suitable probably for outdoor dining because they're a flatter road or flatter segment of the street. But the Coastal Commission has given approval to do closures, to do outdoor dining, and to do RV camping, which is great. That usually would take 6 months to a year to accomplish. They did in 1 month.
Thank you. Terry, you had a question, comment?
Yes, on that closure idea. So they were talking about just making a one-way vehicle traffic. Is that correct?
Well, the report I'm working on would have both options. One option to close the full portion of the Embarcadero. We wouldn't close all of Embarcadero. It's not possible because of traffic, but segments of it to do both lane closures. And another option is just to close the southbound lane, which would meaning the waterfront side of the street would be open for pedestrian traffic and for potential outdoor dining and or retail outside. So it definitely opens the door for that. There's pros and cons to both. With a full closure, you lose access to the main parking lot below the old D'Estacio building. You lose more parking in general. You have a harder time dealing with deliveries, but it's cheaper to do because you only really need to close off the street in those 2 areas, both ends, if you will. If you do a 1-lane closure, it allows for more opportunity for deliveries. It improves the access to that parking lot below the D'Estacio building and allows for on-street parking for deliveries. But there's a higher cost because then you have to close off the entire lane for the whole duration of where it's closed. So there's some pros and cons and sort of putting that together and seeing what council thinks. But if TBID has kind of a strong desire to see something move forward, I think that would be helpful, even though it wasn't put forward as a recommendation. I think just hearing from all of you would be helpful.
I was down there the other day and I was kind of thinking about, I would be hesitant of closing the 2-way traffic because of deliveries, because of construction going on, which is now going on and going to continue even more so in the future. But I was thinking, what if just the one Embarcadero side of parking was taken away? And you'd lose about 60 spaces if you went from Giovanni's all the way down to the Morro Bay Yacht Club and really expand a longer space to really push people down the south side of the Embarcadero. And I don't know if it's possible to negotiate with places around town that have available lots or parking, like the B of A parking lot, if that's possible to negotiate with them to pull people up into the downtown area. People would have to walk farther to get down on the Embarcadero, but it would help the hotels that are up in that area and the vacation rentals and the local businesses if people are parking down there and then have to walk down to the Embarcadero. So it was just something I was looking at, thinking that's a way to save some of the parking and keep the two-way traffic going.
Yeah, we looked at that option. Police department and our city engineer, traffic engineer, didn't feel it was sufficient spacing to keep our pedestrians free from conflict with traffic going in both directions. So that was definitely a consideration we had, but I was told emphatically no by the police chief and city engineer. So definitely on the same page as you. I would trying to preserve as much of the ease of traffic and have it both ways, but in reality, if we really want to be safe, we either got to do a one-lane closure, which includes no on-street parking at all, other than deliveries, and then or a full closure of the whole thing.
I wanted to address deliveries if I could. I've lived in a couple of very major cities, and I assume everyone else here has, if not lived in one, at least visited one and been to a shopping mall, an American shopping mall. An American shopping mall, the guy does not pull the delivery truck up in front of Burberry and pull out boxes of handbags and take them straight in. There's a zone where they park and they go in through a loading tunnel, and many times they have to walk up to a quarter of a mile or a half a mile to reach the back end of the store to drop off whatever it is that the merchandise is. I don't think it's outside of the scope of normal business to have loading zones, rather delivery zones, perhaps in the lot between the street between the Blue Sail and the Embarcadero. There's a street, I forget the name of the street, and then it circles around by the restroom at the chessboard park, Centennial Park, one there, and then one down by either the Garden Gallery or at the other end by the Shell Shop, and have those designated as the zones where a person or a delivery truck, a Michelin guy, a foods guy could park and then, take the dolly in and take it down the pedestrian area and get the services dropped off. It's not unreasonable. It happens everywhere else in America. We're just not used to it here, and change is difficult, but change can happen. And I think, this coronavirus has shown that we all have to kind of morph and change what we're doing. And just a thought in terms of deliveries.
Hey, Joan, my fear of closure, of a large closure like that of a section, is the effect it'll have on businesses, essentially retail businesses that are not within the closure zone. I think we already fight that a little bit in Morro Bay, that the Embarcadero is the place to be. And so Morro Bay Drive, is concerned that they don't get as many tourists as they should. I think we'd be compounding that. It'd be, this is where we need to be. I know in Park City, we like to go there, and they revitalized the Main Street in Park City, and there was an article about how it really affected the businesses that were outside that. This felt like we don't shop till we get to that spot. So we got to factor that too. I think we'd have a lot of pushback from businesses that are not within that zone.
Yeah, they recently closed State Street, Chris, in Santa Barbara, and closed it so that it's just pedestrian and bike traffic. I'm not suggesting necessarily, whatever the city comes up with, even if it's one-way traffic, what I'm suggesting is we remove the delivery trucks from the Embarcadero, because the delivery trucks and the double parking that occurs because of that, and the traffic congestion that occurs just because of delivery trucks, only because of delivery trucks. We all have to take deliveries. I mean, I had a business down there for years. You've got to get your stuff delivered, but there are better uses of the space for us to encourage business, for us to encourage the cash register to hum, right? So blocking the traffic with delivery trucks, a guy delivering linen to my hotel that I used to have, or a guy delivering beer is not probably the best use of the space. I'm saying perhaps we could move that. I don't know if that's a model that would work, though. We'd have to look at it.
Yeah. A good point by both of you, Chris. A good point. I think State Street. There was an article in the LA Times today or yesterday, and it's like almost too popular now. That with the closures, and now it's like overly impacted. So I do understand your concern that it's drawing consumers away from other areas because they're like, oh, State Street is now very cool to go hang out. And Ventura is considering something in their Old Town area on Main Street. And I think portions of the city of San Luis Obispo, they're also considering lane closures. And again, I think the intent is to, in some respects, experiment with things that those cities have been trying to do in the past. And this gave them the green light to move forward. Also to encourage social distancing where it's not possible. And then try some of those things like outdoor dining or outdoor retail. So it opens the door for that, but I certainly understand that it becomes a thing and then it maybe pulls people away from other areas.
That being said, I am totally for one-way traffic. I've thought that for a long time. I've always been up Temecula, and they still haven't done it in Temecula, but it's going to happen. They're going to do it too, because it's just so much pedestrian traffic now. It'll happen. And I see Morro Bay getting there one day. I think one-way traffic would be brilliant. Yeah, some of the plans done in the past contemplated that, and that was the ultimate goal. And I think that was the chair had mentioned Sean Green's email, and I think he had maybe referenced that this is what the city is wanting to do in the past under different circumstances and with enhanced infrastructure. In other words, building out the sidewalk into the road and then having one lane of parking and one lane of traffic. This is obviously more of a jerry-rigged situation, but that was ultimately, that is the goal of the city to get to that at some point.
Thank you, Scott. Terry, you had a comment before we moved on here?
Yeah, just real quick, I want to remind everyone that it's not just delivery, but construction.
Right.
There is construction going on now. There's several more projects on the pipeline, and you can expect construction workers to go back 2 or 3 blocks to their truck every time they need something. It's going to become cost prohibitive for the project itself. It's going to become more and more costly for the project if they have to add that much more time and being able to get equipment and everything else down there. So just something to keep in mind.
Great. Thank you, Terry. All great comments here. Jen, you had something?
I wanted to just, I pulled up really quick the Adair. I just want to kind of show you so you can, I just found that really fast. I want to show you guys what's going on. This is what they sent yesterday. This is California for they book a lot of travel. So this is their search for California, how many people are actually searching. And you can see here's where we are now. This is June 8th was the last time they reported. This is search. And then here's bookings next to it, which is really nice to see that it's ticking up. But I just thought you guys would like to see kind of where it's going. International is not even registering, but I was glad to see this was moving up. So I'll keep forwarding these to you as we get them, okay?
Great, thank you. And if there's nothing else for Scott, I think we're going to jump into Megan's further presentation on the Google.
Chair, do you mind, Chairman Al, do you mind opening up for public comment? I don't know if we did that already. I'm sorry if you already have.
Sure. AGP, is there any public comment?
No, sir. There is nobody in the queue with their hand up at this moment.
And I think we need a recommendation, right, on this?
I think it'd be helpful if you want to just say support. If there's consensus to support it, it'd be good to have that motion. But we have the input as well about some of the other tangentially related things that we'll take under consideration too.
Scott, it's specifically for the tourism rollout plan?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So I move that we approve the tourism rollout plan as presented.
Do we have a second?
A second. This is Nancy.
First by Joan, second by Nancy. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Okay. We will recommend the Morro Bay Tourism Rollout Plan. Good job, everybody. Then if there's not any further public comment, Megan, can you speak a little bit more about the Google program?
Absolutely. So I know we talked about it somewhat already, but let me share this screen.
Don't you guys love Zoom meetings?
I think they're kind of fun.
Keep things exciting, right? That up for everyone?
I've just seen you guys in person.
Is that up for everyone?
It is, yes.
Perfect. So the SoCal Google Co-op this year includes a few things. It includes the Google Tour Creator, which is actually a platform for creating virtual tours, which are now more popular than ever, thanks to coronavirus. It also includes photospheres, which are 360-degree photos, similar to what Nancy was talking about earlier. We need to have quite a few updated. So included in this co-op is a day of just capturing those photos, and then a full day of the street view shoot, which would be a total cost of $4,750. Why this is a great opportunity? Google accounts for nearly 92% of all searches worldwide. When people are planning trips, the amount that use, sorry, it's moving that over. The amount of people who are planning trips that use online search engines, 65%, and 27% of those use mapping websites. And specifically, Google Maps is the highest used mapping service. The next in line, it beats out by over 6 times. So what is Google Street View? It's a technology that provides panoramic views of streets, natural wonders, heritage sites, museums, malls, trails, and many more sites. The content comes from 2 sources, so Google and contributors. This specific co-op would be from Google directly, so that way we are able to brand it as Morro Bay Tourism and get our presence as a DMO up on Google. So it allows people to virtually explore the world. So this is an example of that branding that I was referring to. This is specifically for Louisiana. And then I'm going to go to an example of their Google Street View, which is a trail in Louisiana. You can see their little icon over in the corner. And then move that over. Sorry, playing with my Zoom screens. There we go. You can move around the space, go through the trail. Pretty cool. And then, so this is what is currently mapped in Morro Bay. It's kind of hard to see, but hopefully you can see all of those blue lines are street views that already exist. And then the circles are photospheres. So there's quite a few out by the rocks, some along the sand spit. And like Jennifer was talking about earlier, something that's missing is anything kind of in our waterway. So down by the estuary out towards Morro Rock, that would be something ideally that we could map. It would definitely be uniquely Morro Bay. And then once we do the Google Street View, we are able to use that embed code for outreach, able to post it on different content sharing platforms, that kind of thing. So in conclusion, building off of last year's co-op, which focused on Google My Business, this year's Visit SoCal's Google Co-op gives us the DMO exposure that we have been missing, increase our presence on Google, which is where most future visitors find their information. Any questions or feedback or how we can best capitalize on this opportunity?
Thank you, Megan. Personally, I think it's a fantastic idea. I just, question for, I guess, Jen or Scott. I've completely lost track of our budget and where we are. I know we're not spending money now, but all the projections we had from the beginning of the year, I mean, what does that look like? How much money do we have to spend?
We would be fine with this. It won't be happening today, Steve. This will probably be 30 to 60 days out before it gets done.
Yeah, and this is it fits within the budget that was recommended by this body as well as council in their first review.
And am I understanding that Slow Cow's contributing 50% to this? So essentially this is on sale, 50% off?
Correct.
Megan, can you back up your slides to show the one with the little dots along the waterway?
Sure.
I didn't see that in our staff report, and I want to take a look at that slide one more time.
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Thank you. I only see one dot up on Black Hill on the trail, and that trail is a wonderful piece of open space for us. I'm wondering if somehow we can get like another dot over there, maybe, if that's some type of possibility that would allow, because it's so gorgeous up there, that that view, that 360-degree panorama down the valleys, and you can see all the sisters lined up and the estuary and everything. I don't know, but that was just a thought.
So this trail is marked as well, this blue line leading up to Black Hill, but included in the co-op is a full day of picture capture. So I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, it looks like the beach is going to be really focused on. That's terrific in the waterway too. So yeah, okay, great.
Megan, have we ever discussed doing any partnerships? I know this might be opening up a big can of worms question, so please tell me if we can take this offline to be better. But there's so much, I mean, from some of the discussion today, there's so much opportunity for us to do some of this in partnership with, Morro Bay State Park. As Joan said, Black Hill, the walk near Bayside, the boardwalk that's down there by Bayside. There's just so many locations in partnership that would be done in partnership with them. So maybe if you like, we take this conversation offline. Ruvashana is no longer the head of the museum. He's been given a promotion to a different position. So there's a whole new staff now in the reopening of the Natural History Museum that maybe we want to leverage, some people who are going to be starting some new ideas. And this also overlaps with what Joan was talking about earlier with families having outing days in the fall to bring their kids here to Morro Bay. There could be a kind of, all the buses that used to bring all the kids to the Natural History Museum obviously will not be coming in the fall. So there could be a kind of zoom in, walk in kind of program that we could do it in partnership, I think, potentially with the Natural History Museum. So
I think we'll have to see how much time it'll take to do the waterway and then kind of go after the other things after that. Because I'm all for that too, Nancy. And you can see, if you look at the blue line, that little walkway out to where that tree is, has been done. See that loop?
Yeah.
Megan's first is. But I'm totally up for it. Asking them to get on the water is, I think we need to go after that first and see how long they are going to take to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be that long, but it's different for them, and I don't know how we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of the docents and I'm one of these docents, so I know this, that do the Adventures with Nature program, many of them have started to translate those Adventures with Nature around Morro Bay into recorded Zoom presentations. So there's just stuff that we might be able, to leverage. As I said, sort of zoom in, learn a little bit, now figure out how you might walk in safely in the fall. So
we're also missing the walking path on the beach from the Rock parking lot down. See, they didn't do a walking path there. That's the other thing that's missing for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, we need to definitely get blue lines along those dots where it's just completely blank right now first, and especially around that rock. I mean, boy, look at that one right in the middle of the top of the rock. You think we'll be able to get that one? I think we need to talk to Mr. Knuckles first, Chief Knuckles.
Any other questions, comments, motion to recommend?
I know this should be common, but just to make sure it's a sunny day whenever, if we do this and they do it, to make sure it's sunny out in the water.
And not too busy as well.
Exactly.
Good comments. Any other questions, comments? Does anyone have a motion to recommend?
We need to do some public comment.
AGP, is there any public comment?
No, sir. There's nobody in the queue with their hands raised.
Thank you.
Well, then if the chair is looking for a motion, I move that we accept the program and move forward with it as submitted.
Thank you, Joan. Do we have a second?
I second it, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one's opposed. Okay. Great. We'll look forward to that, Megan, and keep us posted. Thank you for that.
Awesome, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Megan. Declaration of future agenda items. Personally, I'd like to just get a brief, overview of our budget. It doesn't have to be too much in depth, but again, things are so fluid right now. Just what that's going to look like here for the rest of the year, I think would be helpful next meeting.
Yeah, we could do that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, I think July is a dark month for the T-bid. That being said, I know how much everybody loves meetings, and maybe we could try to schedule a special meeting to do that, but also to give an update on the vacation rental ordinance revision effort that's underway. I know that had been discussed as a future agenda item, but we're still crafting the ordinance and hoping to complete that work at the end of this week and then present to the vacation rental community committee that was working with city earlier this year and late last year. Mitch is part of that group. So if possible, I'd like to bring something to this committee before around the same time the planning commission reviews that.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
Okay.
Anyone else have anything?
When we bring the budget back, can we get a cost on what the hand washing station program has been? Out of curiosity, I'd like to know what the impact to T-bid has been, because I didn't realize that I don't know why I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that the T-bid budget was paying for the hand washing stations. And so I think it would be great if other businesses, the restaurants and stuff, and the retailers saw that we as a group were trying to also take care of their guests for them. And I don't know, did everybody here know that T-bid was paying for those stations? Right. So if we don't know, how is anybody else going to know that we're partnering to help support their business is what I'm trying to say. So what the cost impact was and how we can let the businesses know that maybe the hotels and vacation rentals have paid for that as a benefit to them and their guests.
And the chamber did send out information on that to everybody, just so you're aware. It was a long time ago. It was March.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not a chamber member, though, so I would have no idea.
Yeah.
So
no problem.
And it is a huge benefit to our restaurants with all the to-go. I mean, the garbage cans fill up in minutes. I mean, we put ours out at the curb for pickup, and within an hour, the lid's open and it's falling off the top because everybody's throwing all their to-go order trash in there. So
we also did all their carry-out signs too. Remember?
Great.
Yeah.
But everyone is good with a special meeting in July?
Yeah, so we can bring this forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
The whole COVID thing, what the impact was to our budget, whatever we did, and a list of it maybe. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Hey, before we go, can we just give an absolute awesome sauce award to Jen Little for incredible, just thank you, Jen, so much for all your efforts over, in creating all the materials for this meeting and all the thoughtfulness for that. I give you a standing ovation.
Well done, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you. It's huge.
Sure.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, going once, we will adjourn the meeting. It is 10:36. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Bye.